Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of In the Dark. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. First and foremost, there's the whole situation with Max. Let's focus on his side of things first. Of course, that whole, he's getting his getaway up, right? And I was like, he's like, I got to get the income. I'm like, oh, and he finds the money missing. He's like, no. I'm like, oh, you poor bastard. We knew it was going to come to that because he was banking on that money because Darnell even suggested, taking that money and kind of using that to kind of disappear and stuff. So it's like, oh, you knew that was going to screw him over. Once again, it's a sad situation of Murphy not telling Max everything as a means of protecting him, not realizing that because you didn't tell him ahead of time, like he was banking on that money. To be fair, that money was kind of his getaway. Because either other way, Neil would have found him sooner or later. At least with money he can get further and with a new identity, making it harder to track him down. But nevertheless, so there's that. There's the whole Dean and Gene situation. I even love him calling him Dean Cuisine. He's like, don't call me that. It's like, yeah, I know where Max is. And Dean's like, I'll go by myself. He's like, no, I got you. Let's go. They find Dean because, the fact of the matter is Max was caught sleeping in a car. And I'm assuming Dean is the only cop Nia had on the payroll. Granted, we don't know that for sure. I would assume so. I guess that's why Dean kind of played such an important role, was because of that. But the fact is, the moment that, obviously that's why Max ran also, because he knows, the cops are going to want him because of the whole, he's wanted already. But so it's just kind of that's why he ran with that cop. Was like, oh, let me see your license and registration and stuff like that. But nevertheless, Dean ends up tracking him down. I even love they make a scene out of that. I wonder if there's supposed to be more to that, because he shaves his head and he's like about shaving his beard and he's about to do it. I wonder, is it the actor who plays Max, is he doing something else where he needs the beard so they're making a joke about that, or is it just because I don't know, maybe contractually he has to keep the beard for the character and stuff. I don't know if there's more to that or not. It just seemed like such an interesting thing of they could have gotten him to shave his head and the beard, but they made a bit of him just stopping. That's why, not necessarily a bit, but they just made a point of it. That's why I'm like, maybe there's more to it. And he's opening the door. I didn't expect Dean to literally be on. I thought he'd hear someone be like, hey, I'm looking for something, and he'd hear Dean and then he bounce. No, he runs into Dean. Dean's like, yeah, you're under arrest. He runs, nowhere to go. Dean catches him. So it's and Dean's like, yeah, help me take down Nia. He's like, oh, I'm not going to help you. He's like, oh, it's like, oh, what are you going to do? He's like, will you stop that kind of making noises and stuff like that? He's like, oh, I forgot what it was he did initially to annoy him, but he was like, but Max was like, oh, what are you going to do? Kill me? Or you only do that to teenagers? And so Dean knows that he knows. But then, Max started doing more and more annoying stuff, like the whistling, banging his head against the wall. But he's like, I get it. You think Murphy loves you. She's just using you. Actually, immediately after you left, she threw herself at me. I was like, he's such a garbage person. That's horse shit. You started making moves towards her because you've had a thing for her the entire time, you piece of... I love how you want to rewrite history to... Because that's so messed up. Because even Max was like, no, that's not her. He's like, really? It's like, we actually even had sex. He's like, you don't believe me? Here's a birthmark and stuff. You want him to work with you? And you're going to say some shady... But it's for him, it's oh, you want to keep up such a stern act and stuff like that because of Murphy and everything. But it's also because, let's not forget, you did in fact kill... see what I mean? He tries to twist things around. I was like, you're such a garbage person. But he's trying to make Max work with him. He's like, fact of the matter is, you helped me take down Nia. I could get some time cut off from your sentence and stuff like that. I was like, come on, Max. I know you're looking out for yourself in this situation because you feel like you kind of have no one, because you feel like Murphy broke your heart. But now, sadly, Murphy broke your heart for a particular reason. And even the whole sleeping with Dean thing was what she went through to make sure she got the confession from him. So it's not like she did it out of love. She did it out of a means to put him in a vulnerable position where he'll admit to what he did, So, but once again, it's that situation of no one telling, not telling someone the truth. It's a nasty, nasty situation. And I'm like, oh, and Max is even what he has on Nia can bring her down because he's the only person that knows where her stash house is because he got the text by accident. Part of me wonders is do you think that's something on Sam's part, that might end up being some. I don't know, because Sam's like her right hand, but it was like basically he ended up getting a burner, and they ended up texting the info to him at the like he ended up getting the information even though he wasn't supposed to. So it's like, all right, Dean's like, all right, so I'm not going to arrest you. The fact of the matter is, I'll get this drawn up so that you can basically get a fresh start. Once I get that, Max is like, once you get that, you bring it to me. I'll tell you all you need to know about Nia. It's like, okay, we can't let anyone know that I ran into you. The door opens. There's a whole bunch of cops, and Gene, he's like, freeze. Almost like, I got you, partner. And I'm like, oh my God. That's the sad thing. Gene's actually really good at what he does, sadly, and it's the worst thing for Dean, you know? And he's like, what did I tell you not? And he was, and even I'm surprised Gene didn't call him out. He's like, what? You getting pissed at me for actually having your back? I hadn't been in contact with you for hours, but hey, it worked out. I found you. You found Max, and we found you, so we were able to get him before he can run and stuff like that. So come on, yeah, just know I got your back. I keep telling you that, but you don't believe me. I'm like, that's so interesting. So this whole plan Dean's got is not going to be the easiest thing when Gene won't leave him the hell alone. Hopefully it doesn't turn into a situation. Hopefully Dean, doesn't have a Jules situation happen to him. You hope that it doesn't turn out like that. I mean, to be fair, you can't really, if it did go down that route, he basically have to do it himself because Nia's not about to kill Dean because it's like she already took care of Jules, and 2 suicides like that back to back, like it might draw too much attention. So if Dean wanted to get rid of Gene, he'd have to do it himself because it's not like he can rely on Nia to get rid of him. So now Max is arrested, where you're like, oh, that's super not good because Nia's got a lot of connections. She was able to pull a lot of strings from behind walls. So it's like, if she gets wind of Max being in jail, all she has to do is pay the right person or just people loyal to her that are in jail that will kill Max just, because she asked them to. It's like, that's a nasty situation in itself. I keep saying that. I don't know why. I don't know why that's kind of been my phrase lately. Nasty situation. Regardless. So there's all of that. Another interesting side story not side story, but element to this episode is obviously Felix meeting up with Sam, because obviously Sam's like, oh, I don't know why Nia trusts you guys so much, but I don't. To be fair, it's because she knows it's about self-preservation for them, that they're not crazy or stupid enough to kind of go against her. So she knows like, oh, like, you're gonna want to work with me because if you try to find any way around this, I can come after any of you. So, and the people that are important to you. So none of them are gonna. So she's got a vice grip over them. So I think Nia's like, oh, like these are scared kids. Like, granted, they're not kids, but in her eyes, they're probably like, oh, these are like little punk kids that like, I can manipulate, I can scare them because they, they're not a part of this world, so they wouldn't dare cross me because they know the ramifications of it. So. But Felix feels so unsafe because of this. So what he does instead is he goes to his mom's house. He was actually trying to sneak in to steal a gun, but his mom found him there. And obviously he's trying to make excuses. He says like, I just came to see you, Mom. Which is like, and you hear that like tone his mom takes with him. It's like, oh, you need money? Oh, so do you date? He's like, yeah, I have a girlfriend. She's like, no, you don't. It's like, and he's like, yeah, I'm dating someone. She's like, oh, Jess? And he's like, she's still gay, Mom. She's like, of course she is. Or something like the shit that comes out of his mom's. I mean, granted, we already knew last season. I was like, oh, your mom's kind of an asshole. Especially because sadly, she treats Felix like shit because like in comparison to his siblings, because he's not the same as his family, because it's like, oh, what's she do? She's a bartender. And he's like, Mom, I'm not like you and the rest of this family. Like, titles don't matter to me, like positions and stuff. Like, he's like, make sure you use protection. The last thing you need is to knock her. It's like, shit, you don't even need to say something like that. It's just that's kind of because it's like, oh, you knock her up, she's gonna come for the family money. It's what she's insinuating. So that once again kind of shitty on her part. But it's like, fine, Mom, I need a gun. And it's like, yeah, there's a vagrant in the alleyway near where I live. It's like, yeah, and they threatened me, so I want a gun for protection. She's like, well, good. You have the right to kind of, the Second Amendment and all that. I was like, oh, okay. So it's interesting, and it's like, okay, like she shows him all of his dad's guns, and it's like, I wonder, does he actually know how to use it? I mean, maybe not. I mean, he does. I think more so than anything, for him, it's like, having a gun later on, he even admits, like, no, it just makes me feel safe. It makes him feel okay. And even when he's meeting Sam later on, she's like, what's up with you? And he's like, what? She's like, you're not as jumpy. He's like, oh, thanks. And then he pulls out the gun and he feels good. He makes him feel safe. But then we kind of find out at the end, said gun is what gets used on, what's his name, Ben? Chelsea's brother, who's also kind of tell from the beginning, like when we got in, kind of a shitty dude too. Like there's a lot of shitty people. I mean, granted, on the scale of like all the shitty people, all the bad people who are shitty, like he's at the bottom, but it's just kind of like oh yeah, I'm gonna take a lunch break. It's like, what time is it? You know, it's like, oh, you want to take a break at 11? You usually get here at 10. Oh, you're starving and all that. Yeah, but you know, shouldn't you be here more? He's like, yeah, my sister shows me those texts with you, which that's kind of effed up. He's like, you know, like when people can see when you're typing something, but then you decide not to text it. And, you know, it's like, the fact is I could give, you know, my sister's insecure, so I could put in a good word being like, either you're cool or you're not. And, you know, Felix being very insecure himself is like, oh yeah, sure, if you're starving and stuff like that. It's like, oh, come on, Felix. Don't let this dude kind of push you around. You know, hell, you're the one giving him a chance. But regardless, so there's that. But then obviously, like, well, there's also another interesting storyline I'll get to before we get to like the main crux of the episode. But the whole thing of Darnell, him like trying to get a job. I mean, you can't really reference the job you had previously because like, because even if you're like, oh, I work for Nia, it's like, that still put a little stain on any job you had just because she might have gotten released, but at the very least, it's still going to be like, oh, she was arrested for being some kind of crime boss or something, right? So it's like, you don't want to put that on your resume because you have to answer a lot of questions and stuff like that. So there's that. But he's trying to get a job. He ends up running into a friend of his, which is interesting because we get a little more, it sets up some interesting stuff because was it episode 1 of the season, Nia referenced that, because they bring up his name and I'm blanking on it already, but he's the dude that's running, he's a competitor in this whole thing of like, while Neil was locked up, he ended up taking over some of those territories and kind of has more of a foothold in this. And home dude worked for him. It's like, oh, if you want me to, I can put a good work for you. But he was like, nah, I'm trying to get out of the game. But things are kind of looking up a little bit more for him because like, oh, I got this job and everything. So I'm like, okay, things are kind of taking a nice turn. But I'm like, something's going to take a like super hard like left turn when it comes to that. Like, and, you know, it's going to be interesting to see what that is. You know, it's like, oh, I guess it's just showing, especially because it's just like considering Darnell knows Nia was behind Jules getting killed and everything. Like, is he really just going to let that go? I don't think he is, but, you know, I mean, he's trying to just get away from that life now that Nia's given him the opportunity. I don't know. We'll see how that goes. But obviously, focusing on the main crux of the episode, we have the IRS, crime division people showing up. It's a lady named Pam and a dude named Josh. Now, what I thought was interesting, Pam was very much like, all right, this is a formality. This is stuff that could have been handled on the phone, but Josh over here wanted to do this face to face. It seems like he definitely wanted to look into this more, but Pam was like, that's enough. And that's what's like, either Pam knows, like, is trying to keep it very close to the vest what they're up to, or the fact of the matter is Josh is the one that's like a very stickler. Because we know, like, it seems like he's a little bit like Felix, where he's a bit of a stickler for the rules because it's like, oh yeah, I tied my dog outside because like, you know, you're only like service animals are supposed to be like allowed in there, and she's like, oh, you're Murphy's like, oh, you're a stickler for the rules and stuff like that, right? So I thought that was kind of, you know, interesting. So I thought that this was more his expedition. And like, I love like Murphy and Jess like stumbling their way through their lies and stuff like that. Because once again, I was like, oh, because the moment they brought it up, they're like, oh, net $10,000. I was like, I knew it. Because, like I said, the IRS takes notice of that. Like, you know, I've watched enough crime dramas to know that, oh, like, they take a notice of 10,000 or more sums taken out. Like, I don't know if it can be, I think accumulatively, it doesn't raise any red flags. I'm not, you know, trying to give any criminal advice or anything, but I just think just based on what I've seen, like, that's the case. Like, I don't think if you accumulate, like, that much, if you do it in small increments over the course of time, it won't raise any red flags, but it's like the fact is taking it all out at once, right? Like I said, anything $10,000 or over, but so it's like that. Plus all this money you've been making recently, like, yeah, they've been, you know, putting in an account for like, they've been like putting it away in small increments, sure, like Felix was saying, but at the same time, it's like they don't have a big enough operation, because it's like, oh yeah, you guys are, it's like, wow, weren't you here yesterday? Murphy's like, yeah, we're doing really good business-wise, even explaining that to the IRS and being like, yeah, we're doing really, really, really good, but it's like, this much income, like, that's the thing, like, they need to space it out more, or like find multiple avenues of revenue, especially because we find out like everything they do with Guiding Hope, with the service dogs and stuff like that, is free of charge. It's a nonprofit in that regard. So it's kind of like, oh, like you need to have multiple lanes of revenue. You can't let that just be your only lane of revenue when you're cleaning this money, just because it's like that's going to look super suspicious. You got to have your hands in many different pots, or at least the thing you're putting your money in has to be able to compensate for the fact is of like, oh, this definitely could be where this heavily increase of income is coming from, but maybe they're doing it in enough increments where it's like maybe it's it shows itself nicely, because I think they also screwed up because it's like, oh, how much is it? 30 does. And he's like, oh, that's it. It's like, you should have because that's the thing. They haven't gotten their story straight. I mean, to be fair, they're not criminal masterminds. So once again, people you need to hit up about this. Once you had the opportunity, should have taken some notes from Max. It's going to turn back into that because like Max is, if he survives, but if Max is around and the situation allows it, he'll be able to give them the ins and outs of like money laundering. So that's definitely going to be interesting. But I even love at one point, obviously, like, Josh was like, oh yeah, I brought my doll back and everything. And it's like, oh, because like the way he's questioning Murphy, I was like, oh dude, he's like a bloodhound dude, or rather a shark. He smells blood in the water. So I was like, oh, this isn't going to be good. This sucks. And so he wants his dog washed and everything. So the van, it's not even set up for that, because like they were in a process of like, once again, they came up with all these lies and stuff like that, but they haven't followed through, haven't really set things up yet. So Jess and Sterling are working on it. And I even love Jess being like, no, we can't really turn to her. I mean, granted, she's had experience with like, she worked at a pet coach, so she knows stuff like this, like grooming and stuff like that for animals. But she's like, I don't, want to ask her because it's like, because basically we find out like basically she's been cyber stalking Sterling a little bit. And it's like, yeah, I masturbated to her Instagram or something like that. I was like, whoa, Jess. But even Jess admitted, like, she doesn't want to be around Sterling because she's afraid, like, oh, yeah, I'm kind of like we have sex. I'm a wife her type of situation, which I could get behind. I feel like I'm probably that type of person, too, where you kind of wear your heart on your sleeve and you're like, oh, my God, like, I'm really into this person. I sleep, like she's a very, like, she's really into monogamy type of thing. She's not like, for her, she even says she's not like Murphy where she can just casually have sex and there be no meaning behind it. So, but I even love Murphy because he's asking all these questions about her being blind and stuff like that. I was like, okay. And then like Murphy's like, oh, I get it. You saw my picture, you thought it was cute, and also like, oh, I've never banged a blind person before, and he was like, what? Oh, how can you even think of something like that? And he leaves, and she's like, oh. Because at first I was like, oh, she's mortified. She's like, wait, I'm sorry. And I'm like, oh. I was like, I thought you said that on purpose to scare him away. It's like, oh no, you literally just misread the situation. Because there was that dude that she randomly hooked up with later, like last season, who was like, she is like, you want to just bang me? Like, you've never banged a blind chick. So like, there are some people who aren't like that. Like, it's like, oh, it's kind of a bucket list thing. Like I've had this, I've had that, and like I've never had a blind chick before, like, so it's not like that came out of it kind of came out of nowhere, but I guess because for her she just assumed because you're asking all these questions, but then she apologizes later on, and it turns out the reason why is because apparently Josh is going blind himself. He's losing his vision more and more, and so he's like, no one actually knows. Murphy's the only person. So at first the moment he's saying, I'm like, is this true or is this 100% bullshit? Because you're actually looking into Guiding Hope for different reasons. Because he even apologizes because he's like, it's inappropriate because I use my job to kind of do that. Which even Murphy's like, it's okay. You apologize for your inappropriateness. I apologize for mine. But for him, he's like, I'll talk to you guys. I won't be looking into you as the IRS, as an IRS, agent and stuff like that. It's just like, he wants to have someone to talk to about it. So that, explains it. I was like, okay. But then, like I said, is it going to be revealed that he is? But it's like, no, like he really is losing his sight at the very least, it seems like. Because like when he's looking at the files later on, he has to, like, he's squinting his eyes. He's got like one closed to kind of magnify his eye, and he's got it super close to his face. So it's like, oh, so that is 100% true. What's interesting though is his file, like it's like, oh yeah, Max, Nia's former money dude, got arrested again, and it was like, okay, so the IRS is about that, and that's going to connect to Murphy, because probably when they look into it, like, oh, maybe it'd be like, known associates, Murphy, I don't know, and it seemed like. And it's going to be a complicated thing because maybe Murphy and Josh kind of hit it off because like he's losing his sight, she's blind. Like it's something where it's like most people kind of treat her like, oh, like she doesn't like the whole like pity or like, oh, let me help you. Like, she wants to be able to do stuff by herself. And it's like, here's someone who can understand what she's going through because she, obviously she lost her sight. And for her, it's like this became her norm. So someone else kind of going through that process, being there with them, I think that might help. Because I mean, obviously the only other person she's really talked to about this is Chloe because Chloe's in her exact position, But obviously if, Josh and her start spending too much time together, Max finds out, oh, wait. What? But then like Murphy's, because obviously for Murphy, she's healing her broken heart because of this whole Max situation. She was like, yeah, let's go to like let me hook up with some random dude just to get this off my mind. But she's like, fine, I'm just going to be sad at the end of the day. But if Max finds out about it, he might start believing a little bit of what Dean was saying, which obviously you should not because Dean is a habitual liar and a murderer. Let's not forget about that. But nevertheless, it's going to be interesting to see where this all ends up taking us. I ended up talking about it earlier. Like I think I just strayed away from it a tiny bit. But circling back to it, what's the whole thing about? Yeah, Ben, Chelsea's brother, ended up getting killed by that gun. But obviously, because of the positioning and stuff like that, we don't know who it was. Part of me is like, you think it was Jess? I think it'd be interesting if it was Jess. Because just on the angle of everything, like, I mean, I could be wrong, but like Murphy was in the other direction and Felix is right behind her. So it had to be someone that was like, right. I'm assuming maybe it's either Max or it's Jess. My money's on Jess. Like I didn't study the hand enough to really notice, but we'll see. Like I said, depending on if Felix and Chelsea are kind of dating at that point, that her brother being dead is going to be super awkward. Not unless someone else killed him, like maybe it's a Sam situation, and then maybe Jess shot Sam because she killed Chelsea's brother just to prove a point. And it's like, what do? We've literally got 2 dead bodies here. This does not look good on any part for any of us. Not unless that ends up being the case. Like I said, it's pure speculation at this point in time. We'll ultimately have to wait and see where all this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.